Hello, everybody. Sean and Tammy Davis from RPH Ally, and we are here on the Burnout Show. Just a quick, I didn't warn, actually, we'll do the reel next time, Tammy. I didn't warn you about the reel, and I lost it on the screen, so we're going to dive right in today. Anyways, we are broadcasting for RPH Ally members and the rest of the world through the Pharmacy Podcast Network. And Miss Tammy Davis is our burnout leader within RPH Ally that's really trying to help our pharmacists and our pharmacy professionals, deal with burnout. And today we're going to be talking about self-awareness. So Tammy, I'm gonna kick it over to you and just let us know. Let's dive into this topic.
Absolutely. Thanks. It's good to see you, Sean. The reason for self-awareness is because one of the industry standards is we talk an awful lot about self-care. And I love words. I'm a wordsmith. And when I look at the word care, there's the idea of care is we're concerned about something. And some of the research that I've been doing lately is on organizational stress, and that it is actually contagious, and it trickles down from management on into into the staff. And this is significant because what they're finding is the long-term effects of that is it lasts a very, very long time. Now, this isn't about blame. This is more about how can we become more self-aware, like, and again, instead of self-care, become more cognizant of what's happening within us in the moment and beginning to self-regulate that way. And so there's different ways, different tools that you can implement in the moment to help yourself regulate yourself so that you can negate that stress response, because it's more than just an emotional reaction. There's a true chemical reaction happening, and it's affecting others. It's not only is it affecting you, but it's also affecting others. And then that happens from there. Everybody else begins to, that's the reason why when you go to a concert and everybody's excited, or one person is excited, then the next thing you know, you got a group of people feeling excited. So that's the same thing is happening with stress. And as far as I can tell, I mean, and they're finding that there's an increased number of people, it productivity lessens. Um, there is a reduction in, there's an increase, I should say, in um, work-related illnesses or stress-related illnesses. Production decreases, and then there's the potential for burnout in other people is huge. So as professionals, when we come at this from the space of self-awareness, because when you think of self-care and everybody talks about self-care, it's like you got to do one more thing, you got to add one more thing to your schedule. And there's until you can um until you can actually harness what's going on with yourself, that the schedule it'll just overwhelm you even further. So there's no sense in adding a lot of things to it, but becoming more you can even, and I'll give you a tip. I mean, one of the ways that I have people do it is actually have them set an alarm on their watch or their phone that just is a kind of I know there's an app, there's a meditation app where the bell just rings, and it's just to bring you back into that present moment as a way of just checking in with yourself and identifying how you're feeling, what's really going on, and what do you need. It's that oxygen mask kind of thing. What do I need right now to be more present and available to those around me? So that's the reason I have shifted from self-care to self-awareness, especially when I started really looking into the organizational stress. It's a very, very big deal. And as far as I'm concerned, stress is the true pandemic.
Okay, I'm trying to keep my thoughts on track here because there's a lot to unpack right there. And I just said unpack, and I hate that word. I'm sorry about using the word unpack. I'm trying to get away from corporate office lingo. Excuse me. Getting back to the corporate driven stress, or the organizational. And sometimes I think organization, my mind directly would, it goes straight to the corporations that I've been involved with. Throughout my years in pharmacy, which many of our colleagues are, tied to corporations. When you talk about that, it's coming down, like that stress is coming down. So can you just talk about that a little bit and how that impacts us around us and how we need to be aware of that? Because I thought like that was really something cool you pointed out.
Absolutely. So when we were talking about maybe metrics, or sales, I mean, that sort of thing, and so the pressure from the higher ups to get the numbers and that sort of thing, that's where it starts to ripple down, because then as a pharmacist, you're feeling this pressure. The one thing I like to say is when there's pressure, you're creating tension. And whenever you're creating tension, that's where the energy is going to go. So, and so that's what's happening is with this pressure to perform, productivity, and to keep the numbers up and keep the business afloat, if you will. Ultimately, the pressure on the pharmacist puts pressure on the techs and anybody else that's involved directly. Um, you just can't. And so there's no way of escaping how that. I mean, if we all would just pause for a moment and just took a look at what does it feel like when somebody comes up like to you and I mean, a good example I have is like when my kids, when they would come up and they needed something right now. This had to happen right now. And you can just feel yourself I don't want to say excited, but excited and not in necessarily the best of ways. And so when that's happening, it all of a sudden becomes normal. It's just a normal experience. And to me, that's where the breaking point has to come. That's where self-awareness comes in, when we start realizing that this is not how this might be my norm right now, but this doesn't have to be the norm. I get to say, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to do the work. It doesn't mean that the jobs aren't going to be taken care of. It's a different state of mind. It's a different, it's just a different state of mind in which you go to unpack it, if you will. Yeah, like you to kind of delegate and realize that there's you can. I guess what I want to say is through self-awareness, when we realize the how we've normalized this state, and when we take when we make the effort to begin to shift out of that, what happens is we find ourselves feeling and experiencing more resourcefulness. Doesn't mean it's all coming down on you. To me, self-awareness is the epitome of leadership, because leadership is, there's a vision, and as a leader, we're going to be taking people in a direction, but it's not all on your shoulders. And so when we are in that state of self-awareness and realizing that this is not how I want to feel, because what's ultimately happening is taking responsibility. And there's Werner Erhard has a great quote about responsibility, which is it's ownership. It's not blame or judgment or taking credit for anything. It's simply owning how you've shown up in a situation and your role in a situation. And as a manager, or it's one of the higher ups, if you will, being aware that what you're putting out there is affecting the other people. And what we want to do is we want to we want to create a coherence. And so that's why when we realize that pressure, and this doesn't mean that we're going to come against somebody that's above us. When we're talking about that hierarchy in corporations, there are people above us, but it doesn't mean you're coming against them. You're just setting a standard. You have the ability to communicate what you need, what the team needs, and begin to create. You actually begin to lead from a very different perspective in all directions. And that's how one way we can truly avoid burning ourselves out, because we've put voice to what we need, as opposed to feeling the pressure to perform. We now get to show up in a different capacity through self-awareness.
I love that. That's a lot right there. I love that. And I love how you said, and I never heard this before, how when there's tension created, that's where the energy goes. And it's obviously it's not positive energy, right? With that
Right.
tension most times. Gosh, I'd love to, I think this is a good segue into next week, because it's like we need to keep talking about the self-awareness and keep adding those tools that our colleagues can use when they're in those positions, and then flip it and send it back up to leadership. And how do we teach leadership how to create those? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly,
Okay.
That's exactly what this is. We're at a pivotal point where we get to change the dynamic altogether, and not only help ourselves but help those around us, and which includes our patients, because your patients are going to pick up on this too.
Yes. And then futures, like maybe a month from now when we get through all of this unpacking, maybe we can figure out how do we get to corporate or get to leaders that don't listen. Obviously the pizza's not working. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Tammy, thank you so much for your time today. We'll be seeing you next Tuesday. Today's Tuesday already. There you go. Anyways, I love it. You're so amazing, Tammy. We'll be talking soon, okay?
I look forward to it.